and welcome to Imagine This Stories. I'm so glad you're here today. If you listened last week, you'll remember that Joshua was all sneakity sneak and sent 2 spies into the city of Jericho. They almost got caught, but a woman named Rahab hid them on her roof. Eventually, they escaped through her window. Whew. And then they told her to tie a red rope in this window. When the army attacked, anyone staying at her house would be safe. The 2 spies made it back safely to their camp. Today, Joshua, these 2 spies, and the rest of the Israelite army are going to cross the Jordan River and fight the city of Jericho. But it's not like any battle you've ever heard before. So sit back, relax, kick off your shoes, and for the next few minutes, imagine this. It was morning. Joshua said to the priests, "Lift up the Ark of the Covenant and lead the people across the river." And so they did. The Ark of the Covenant was a special gold-covered wooden chest that held the most important things for the Israelites, like the 10 Commandments, a pot of manna, and Aaron's rod. It was a symbol of God's presence with them and a reminder of their agreement or covenant with God. Imagine it as a precious treasure chest carried on journeys that reminded them God was with them. The Lord told Joshua, "Today, I will begin to make you a great leader in the eyes of all the Israelites. They will know that I am with you, just like I was with Moses. Now, tell the priests who are carrying the Ark of the Covenant, when you reach the banks of the Jordan River, take a few steps into the water and stop." So the people lined up behind the priests. They all started walking toward the river. It was harvest season, and the Jordan was overflowing its banks. But as soon as the feet of the priests who were carrying the ark touched the water stopped flowing. Soon the riverbed was dry. Then all the people crossed over near the town of Jericho. Now the priests who were carrying the ark walked halfway across the river and then stopped. They waited there until the whole nation of Israel had crossed through the Jordan on the dry ground. Now, this may sound like no big deal until you hear how many people were walking across. It is estimated that there were between 2 and 3 million people. Wow, that's a lot of people. Now, the river stopped flowing pretty far distance away from where they were, so it's not like they were walking in a single file line, but still, I imagine it took a while, and I imagine those priests' arms got pretty tired. And this is cool. There were people who lived along the river really far away, and they saw it dry up, and they were like,
"What?"
They also realized that God was with Israel. When all the people had crossed the Jordan, the Lord said to Joshua, "Choose 12 men, 1 from each tribe. Tell them to each go and get a stone from the very place where the priests are standing in the middle of the Jordan. Carry the stones out and pile them up at the place where you will camp tonight." I think that's pretty cool. They used these stones to make a memorial, so years later, when someone asked, "What's that?" they could say, "Those rocks are there to remind us that the Jordan River stopped flowing when the Ark of the Covenant went across." So that's what they did. Each of the men grabbed a rock and brought it with them. Now, the gates of Jericho were tightly shut because the people were afraid of the Israelites. No one was allowed to go in or out. But the Lord said to Joshua, "I have given you Jericho, its king, and all its strong warriors." And then God told them something kind of strange. He said, "You and your fighting men should march around the town once a day for 6 days. 7 priests will walk in front of the ark, each carrying a ram's horn. Don't talk or make any noise as you walk. Then, on the 7th day, you're to march around the town 7 times. When you hear the priests give one long blast on their horns, have all the people shout as loud as they can. Then the walls of Jericho will come tumbling down." So that's what they did. They marched, and they marched, and they marched, and they quietly marched. I wonder what the people in the city of Jericho were thinking. They must have been wondering, what kind of army is this? They're just walking around in circles. Finally, On the seventh day, the Israelites got up at dawn and marched around the town as they had done before. But this time, they went around the town 7 times. The 7th time around, as the priests sounded their long blast on their horns, Joshua commanded the people, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the town. Only Rahab and the people in her house will be spared, for she protected our spies." When the people heard the horns, they shouted as loudly as they could. Suddenly, the walls of Jericho collapsed, and the Israelites charged straight into the town and captured it. Meanwhile, Joshua said to his 2 spies, "Keep your promise. Go to Rahab's house and bring her out along with her family." So the men who had been spies went in and brought out Rahab, her father, mother, brothers, and all her other relatives that were there with her. They moved her whole family to a safe place near the camp of Israel. This story ends with the Bible saying, "So the Lord was with Joshua, and his reputation spread throughout the land." I'll bet it did. The people who lived in that area saw the river stopped flowing. They most likely heard about this strange army of marching people, and they heard about how the walls of Jericho came tumbling down. That is quite a story. I hope you enjoyed it. Want to hear something cool? Over 40 years before this story happened, when Moses and the Israelites first left Egypt, Moses sent 12 spies into this land to see what it was like. 10 of the spies came back and said, "Oh, the land is amazing, but the people there are huge and fierce. We can never defeat them." But 2 of the spies, a man named Caleb and a man named Joshua, both said, "Yes, the land is amazing, and the people are huge, but our God is bigger, and he can help us defeat them all." Sadly, Moses and the others listened to the 10 spies who said, "No," and they all ended up wandering around the desert for 40 years. That means when Joshua defeated the town of Jericho, he was over 80 years old. Yikes! Thanks so much for listening today, and please consider sharing this podcast with other people. I look forward to talking to you again next week when we imagine this. Bye!